2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 6, as we continue in our verse by verse through this amazing book. You ever thought of this? Why does it seem like good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people? You ever notice that? It seems like the good people, well, for example, I look at my mom, she's an angel. And, she had 9 kids, raised 8. Second one passed away. But she was faithful, a stay-at-home mom there, just taking care of the family, cooking and cleaning and doing all the other things a mom does, loving on her children. And shortly after, I believe 2 weeks after my dad passed away, she was diagnosed with cancer. And it's kind of like, Lord, why? Why? Why would you allow that to happen? But on the flip side, we know that there are people who do bad and evil. And it seems like they're the ones that's being blessed. I have another example of someone that I know, selling drugs, doing bad things. He got arrested, sent to prison, served some time, and then he got out. Started to work for a company. A few months into it, he got hurt. He sued them, a couple of $100,000. I don't know how much, but he started living the lavish lifestyle. And it's kind of like, Lord, why? Why does it seem like the bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad? Well, when we look at our story here, this is one of those sections of Scripture that you scratch your head if you don't know the background and the why behind the what or the what behind the why. Then you kind of scratch your head and say, just don't seem fair. As we go through 2 Samuel, we are to this point where, of course, David now becomes king, and the whole of Israel is starting to unite under him as king. And so David, good things has happened in his life. 2 Samuel chapter 6, it begins. Again, David gathered all the choice men of Israel, 30,000. Now keep in mind, David started off with 400 men in a cave, disgruntled. They were discouraged. They were in debt. And now David, with all of Israel under him, 30,000. And notice it says choice soldiers. That means he gets to pick the cream of the crop. If you just have a whole lot of, leftovers, it's kind of like, I guess I have no choice. But David have the cream of the crop, the strongest of the soldiers. And here he gathers them. And look at what he's going to do in verse 2. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, whose name is called by the name, the Lord of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. So David now, remember, he became king. The other kings, or one of the kings built a house for him. He had favor with those that are outside. David sees that the ark of God, well, if you remember, that box, that golden box that God told them to build that has the cherubim sitting on top, which represents the presence of God that will come upon that box when it was in the tabernacle. And in that box, it have the promise of God, the presence of God, and the power of God, represented by the manna and Aaron's rod and the commandments. And so here it is that David wants to bring that box to the new home, Jerusalem. And the last time we saw that box, the ark, well, if you remember, Saul took it into battle, thinking that it's a lucky charm, that if we just bring it into battle, that what will happen, we will win this war. And, quite the opposite happened. They lost it. The enemies, the Philistines, captured the ark and took it into their own place, put it next to their idol, only to find that the next day the idol was fallen on its face. It broke its head off. And so God struck the Philistines with a plague. They had boils, they had tumors. And so they said, you know what, we need to get rid of this thing. They put it on a cart and tied a bull to it, a female cow to it. And it led the ark back to Israel, to their territory. And it stayed there in someone's house. No one would touch it. They just left it there. But now David wants to bring it to Jerusalem. And so what happens? Well, we're told in verse 3, so they set the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart, and they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, accompanied by the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played music before the Lord on all kinds of instruments of fir wood, on harps, on stringed instruments, on tambourines, on sistrums, and on cymbals. So we have here this celebration, this parade, as they have all these instruments, and the ark is on this cart, and they're bringing it back to Jerusalem. They're celebrating. Again, think about it. They have a new king, David. They all are starting to embrace him. They just won the battle against the Philistines, and they captured Jerusalem. So now they have a new capital. They have a new king, a new capital. They have an amazing army now. And they're thinking, this is reason to celebrate. So they're celebrating. They're coming back with this ark. And while things are going so well, what happened? Well, verse 6. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put out his hands to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error. And he died there by the ark of God. I want you to notice what happened. As Uzzah, he is carrying the ark on this cart. His brother is ahead of him, leading the worship as they travel back to Jerusalem. And as they're traveling on this cart, well, of course, there's bumpy roads. This is not roads that we have here. So they're going along, and the road is bumpy, and next thing you know, the ark is falling off the cart, and Uzzah puts out his hand to steady it, and I don't know if it was lightning, but he is struck dead. And all of the celebration, all of the music, all of the parade, all of a sudden comes to a stop. Like, what happened? Uzzah is dead. Well, he's dead. Why? Well, he touched the ark. He touched the ark? It said that he did this in error. He made a big mistake. You see, why would God strike Uzzah? Isn't he doing a good thing? Isn't he bringing the ark of God to Jerusalem, where they're going to build the tabernacle or set it up and put God in his right place? You see, sometimes following God makes no sense. Sometimes following God, it makes us scratch our head because the guy is doing a good thing. You ever seen someone in ministry, they're serving and things are going well, and all of a sudden tragedy happens. And you start to scratch your head and say, God, why? You see, a lot of times we say, why? Why, God? Well, I'll give you the reason why. The reason why is because when you look at, when it comes to the ark, when it comes to the approach of God, God gave some specific directions and instructions that should be followed. It's not something that we can just say, you know what, I think I know how to do ministry. I know what God said, but I'm going to do it my way. No, listen. God gave some specific instructions. When He told them to build a tabernacle, He gave them specific instructions. When He told them to build the ark, He gave them specific instructions. He told them how they are to set up the tabernacle, and when they pull it down, how they are to take it down, and who is to carry what. So there's 3 families in the family of Aaron that is supposed to take care of the transportation of the ark.